Welcome, Philip. Nice to talk to you again. We recently, well, not recently, actually, this has been a long time coming. So we connected a few years back first, and then, now just this year, we finally reconnected and we were able to have a nice chat in a different time as well. And I'm really excited to have you on my podcast and get to know you a little bit more.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to collaborate and share content and just have a really great conversation.
Yeah, likewise. And I think we come from similar passions when it comes to kind of preparing the youth for the future, career development, and just living with a purpose, essentially, and just doing something we enjoy. So I look forward for the audience to hear some of your experiences as well. So give us a little bit of a context about kind of who you are, what's your little career story, and just so we get to know you.
Oh man, I don't know, I have to fast forward. So I'm a higher ed professional. I work at George Mason University as an industry advisor for media arts, design, sports and rec, and hospitality and tourism. Industry advisor means not only do I work with students and help them with their resumes and cover letters and professional development, but I also meet with employers to make sure that they are recruiting Mason students and know the recruitment strategies to really engage them. So it's kind of like employer relations and student facing. I'll be be remiss that I really enjoy the student aspect. That's where I thrive. I believe, I really enjoy engaging young people, as you said earlier. My career path is the most serendipitous, random career path. I grew up in the area of Northern Virginia, son of a military brat. I'm the military brat, so son of a military officer, but luckily my dad was able to be stationed in the DMV area. So from there, I've been able to grow up in Northern Virginia and go to college at James Madison, and they'll get my master's at Mason, which was where I kind of started my journey in higher ed. I was in the counseling program, and from there, just kind of staying involved, doing my internship at Career Services, and just staying in the sphere of education and being an educator. So
that's interesting. Hey, you, thanks for watching. If you're enjoying this episode, make sure to share it with friends and family who might find it interesting. Make sure to hit the subscribe button as well to stay up to date on weekly new videos that are going to be coming out with some awesome guests that I bring on. And if you have any questions, use the comment section to ask me questions, to interact. I look forward to talking to you. That's interesting. And actually, it's very similar to my story, I guess, as well, now that you've said it, because when I was at Old Dominion University, I also just kind of started working on campus as I was doing my bachelor's and then my master's. And it's kind of like you get sucked into this life, and there's so much that can be done. And then it's actually really rewarding. And that's how I started off in higher education before kind of moving on to corporate. So I completely relate in that sense. So, what's interesting and kind of why we connected is because you're also a very curious guy in terms of the other things that you're doing. And this is what I very much appreciate about individuals like yourself. You're very dynamic in the different areas. So, you have, of course, you have your work and, your career, but then also you have your podcast and you have your volunteer thing. So it's like, what drives you to be, I guess, dynamic in such a way? And on top of that, just to be mindful for the audience, is that you're also a husband and a father of two, right?
Yes,
so
ma'am.
you stay busy, like, and this is what I want people to take away. Like, it's, because that's the excuse I was getting. Well, how do I have the time to do all these things? So you're quite dynamic as an individual. What drives you to be continuously curious about all these different areas?
I think what drives me is I just don't like being bored. I be flat out. I like different experiences. I like connecting with people. My wife calls me an extrovert. So I just really enjoy people connection and learning and growing. I like to go back, I kind of dived into this profession. I think the counseling program at Mason gave me this spark on individual growth and thinking about feelings and empathy and all that. But then as I worked over time, I was always curious about why people are motivated and what gets people excited. And so I'll tell a little tangent before I started my podcast, is that I remember I was really bored at one of my jobs, and I used to make YouTube videos in my car called like Random Ramblings of Philip Wilkerson. And what it was for me was that I was like trying to motivate myself by talking to a camera. And, I would do these little Monday rambles about, passion and motivation. And I realized that was really boring because I was just sitting in my car, and they're still up now on YouTube, but it was boring. And so I pivoted and I said, you know what, let me take this and learn how to do podcasts. And so it was like always this desire to share information and connect, whether it was digitally or in person. And that kind of sparked that. In regards to time management, I will be remiss that I'm not the best. I've always had to continuously try and learn. I even worked when I was at Mason. I worked at the Learning Services Center, and so I remember I was teaching students about time management and learning strategies, and I was like, "How am I going to preach this to someone else? I need to look on it." So that kind of like it. My avenue of growing and learning was always with this avenue of like, if I'm going to share it with someone else, I need to be a practitioner myself. So I just randomly got this new hourglass called the Focus Hourglass.
Oh,
So
I love it. How long is the time?
It's 30 minutes. So, things like that. Like I try to experiment on myself. And when I experiment on myself, then I feel like I can actually share it because it's authentic. Like if I say, wow, this is what I do for my resume, I practice on myself. This is what I do for kindness and empathy and positivity. I practice on myself. If this is what I do for time management, I need to practice on myself. So that kind of aligns with your question about this continuous desire. I always want to share with other people, but before I share it, I want to learn it myself and practice on myself.
Yeah, no, and and I think it's so valid. And I think sometimes, there's this expectation that you're supposed to be, just because you do X, you're supposed to be excellent in this thing. And I don't always agree with that. I feel like it's like you said, it's just a continuous journey. And it's just being mindful that like, hey, I need to work on this because each next level is going to require you to be better and better. Each time you get a new project, you're going to have more things you need to spend time with. So I think it's just about like just being mindful and being aware, like what you just said, and just saying, listen, I'm not great at it, but I do have some strategies that might work for other people as well. It doesn't mean you're perfect necessarily at it. You're not a time management expert. Like, do you know what I mean? So, but I feel like it doesn't stop people from sharing like, hey, this worked for me. I'm still learning, but might work for you. So I think that's really cool. And yeah, I think it's just, again, it's just trying to see what else is out there. And I don't know about you, but what I've learned from podcasting, and I'm curious how the impact's been for you. But for me, I learned so much about so many things, and also how to just have a conversation. Like, so what's your biggest lesson? Because you do a lot more. You're way ahead of me with podcasting.
So podcasting, as you know, when we did our episode together, I have a notebook, and when I'm interviewing my guest, I'm taking notes. And I kind of joked with someone. I said a long time ago, regardless if I had one person listen to my podcast or zero or whatever, I'm going to learn something. So every interview with a guest was a lesson for me. And I'm a very audio learner. Drawing back to my experiences with learning services, I learned that my learning style was through audio, right? Like I don't really like to sit still and read, and that, no shade to reading, but I learned by talking it out loud. I learned by having conversations. I learned from other people's experiences that have experienced things before me. And so that was my learning style. So I literally can go back at any of my old episodes and re-listen to something and find a new gem or a new lesson. And I was like, wow, this is great. Like I literally have an audio recorded, digital library of life lessons. And so it's really helped me. And then going back to your point, I remember earlier in regards to that practicing in my car, is that I remember one time I was like, I want to be a better public speaker, and I want to be able to engage audiences. And so podcasting technically has helped me do that, right? Like I'm not shy anymore. It's really lowered my, I was never really shy. But it lowered my perception of what a public speaker could do. Because as I learned and had these conversations virtually, I'm like, well, people out there in the world are listening. So then I should be able to be more comfortable when I see an audience in person. And so I've taken the skills that I've learned from podcasting and interviewing to my work. I do a lot of panels and panel discussions. I ask engaging questions because I'm practicing my engaging questions during the podcast. So really having a podcast has really transformed my professional career in ways that I did not imagine. It's made me, learn a lot of life lessons, but it's made me more comfortable talking to people. It's made me more thoughtful about my questions that I ask others. It's made me more prepared, sending these invites and sending these calendar invites and being structured with my podcast. So there's been a lot of, professional benefit to me having this creative endeavor that I felt has bled over into my professional life as well as my personal life as well.
Yeah, and I think it's so spot on. And so the reason I started this whole podcast to help people get out of their comfort zone and interview people like yourself and many others who are just doing awesome things, who are very dynamic. And what I always get out of these conversations is that it's just about starting. It's just about trying. And you quickly realize that actually it's just you in your own head doubting yourself. And nobody starts off being a great public speaker, even if you're an extrovert, because I'm very extroverted as well most days, you know, and still by just, you know, podcasting and just putting myself out there, I think that's where it's at. And, you know, another interesting point, you were talking, you said, you know, whether it's 0 people listening or 1 person, you learn, but also I think it's important to remember is that whenever you're speaking, people are listening, and not 100% of your audience is going to agree with you or like what you say. And there's this 1/3 rule in life. I don't know where I read it from or who I heard it from, but it's like 1/3 of people will like you, 1/3 of people will not like you, no matter what you do, no matter how nice you are. And then 1/3 of people don't even care that you exist, and etc. So it's like, I think with podcasting and just professional and personal growth, I think as long as you're just being true to yourself and continuously improving, I think that's where it's at. And so that's why when people listen to podcasts, if they either relate or they don't, but it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, you cannot address every single person that listens to your podcast, you know? So I think.
Did you just say 1/3 like bad? Did you say 1/3 will like you?
Yeah, like 1/3. People.
Okay, I thought you said 1/3 won't like you, 1/3. I was like, dang, that's like 3/3. That's the whole thing of not good. So there's at least 1/3 that likes you. Okay, I was trying to, now math is not my strong suit, but yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. You know, because I was thinking about 2 examples when you were talking about that. Was one, you know, when you're doing a public speech, and you see that person on their phone not paying attention, or that person get up and walk out, we have a tendency to focus on that person, like, oh my gosh, I'm bombing. And I realized a long time ago, I was like, all right, whatever. Like, I literally do the opposite, and I target and I zoom in on the person that's nodding their head or giving me feedback. I don't care if you're on your phone. And I joke about it. I say something. Sometimes I even play into that when I'm talking to people. I'm like, 90% of y'all never gonna see me again, so I can say whatever I want. And I engage in that way, and it lowers the pressure because, as you said, I'm gonna focus on the audience that will get a benefit out of it. I'm gonna focus on those that want to grow and learn like me, and I can't worry about it. Like, I remember early on, this is 2 stories. One story is that when I first started the podcast, I recorded my first recording December 2016, right? Recorded it. And I did not release my first recording until April 2017. So I don't know, I'm not quick math, but it's like 5 months later. I just sat on it. I was nervous. I didn't hit the trigger. I didn't release it because it was this anxiety about, like, no one's gonna like it. And I don't know. And I just can't remember that space. Like, I don't remember even being that person that was scared to even hit release, you know? And so I remember one of my friends, Sam Nang, I'm gonna give him a shout out. I called him, he positively trolled me, meaning I shared with him that I was gonna start a podcast. And all the time he would say things on social media like, I can't wait till your podcast come out. Can't wait till that new Positive Filter come out. And I literally was like, yo, stop, this is embarrassing, because like, it didn't come out, right? Like, he was holding me accountable on a virtual space in front of the world. And so I really give him a lot of shout out for that. And then another one is that I remember when I first started, if you look at my Apple reviews, all my people, they give me mad love, 5 stars, whatever, my friends. And I got one 4-star, 1 4-star on my Apple reviews. And I'll shout him out because I like to troll him a little bit. My boy, Jay Feynman, and he wrote like, you could do a little bit better, give you A for effort, right? Yeah. And I could have been like, I could have focused on that. I could have focused on that 1 4-star comment. Yeah. But honestly, it's a joke now. To me, it's a joke, as in, was there anything constructive with that feedback? And there was, honestly. It was like, maybe you could be a little tighter with your audio production, maybe all that, but I realized over time that in kind of adding to math, that there's like 10% truth in everything that people say, even negative feedback, that, okay, I'll take the feedback as it is, like, what I can apply and help me grow. And the rest, I'm just going to discard. So if someone was like, yo, this podcast is trash, okay, is that really constructive? No. But if someone was like, he could do better with his audio editing and his sound quality, well, maybe that's true.
Yeah.
I could take that and apply it, but then I'm going to discard anything that doesn't have any benefit to my growth.
Yeah.
And so I think those are some lessons about people that are nervous about starting, right? You're going to get negative feedback, as you said. You're going to get things like that, but there's nothing to it but to do it. Just start the first step and you'll never know. Like you'll look back on it. I literally cannot remember that person that I was 4 years ago that was so hesitant to share. And now I'm doing it all the time.
Yeah, and you're very good at it.
I don't remember where that was. I don't remember that space that I was in.
You're very good at it. I mean, we just recorded some of your podcasts not too long ago, and you're very good. You're natural at it. You ask good questions. I mean, I love it. And you're right. I mean, there's going to be negative feedback, and some of it is, it's healthy as long as it's constructive. But I like this quote from Brene Brown. I forget exactly how it goes. It's basically just saying, unless you're in the ring with me, also fighting, like don't shout out from the sidelines. Everybody always has an opinion, and you're like, have you done this? Like, have you tried this? So who it's coming from is also important, right? Like if it's coming from like an expert who like you look up to, they would actually give like constructive feedback. Everybody else, I'm like, if you've never done a podcast, please don't talk to me about podcasts. Like if you know what I mean? Like, so it's like
we're vibing on that because that's the poem "Man in the Arena" from Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah.
That is literally my like life mantra. I have it printed out. One of my colleagues, Ann Garner, shout out to you. She printed that out, and I have that. I visibly had that in my office at work. And that's literally my go-to mantra. Like, if you're in the arena with me and you're bloody and marred, it says like bloody and marred. Yeah. That's the person I'm gonna take advice from. The spectators, it's easy as a spectator to shoot you down and be on the sidelines and be one of those sideline coaches. But if you're in there, if I look to the left and I look to the right and you're in there with me and you're giving me that feedback, I know that you know what I'm going through. And so I mean, there's some people that might give you good feedback from the stands, but I definitely take to heart those that are in the arena with me that have that same life experience, or at least tried. That's the key word, at least tried. Even if you tried and failed, I'd rather take your advice than someone that don't even try at all. Like, what are you going to tell me about public speaking? You didn't get in stage. I'd rather take the advice of someone that got on stage and got booed because they at least tried. So I love that quote. I mean, that lit me up because that's literally one of my favorite quotes. And I have that, man in the arena. I love it.
Yeah, I live by that as well. But I initially heard it from Brene Brown, but you're right. It was a poem that she quoted. Yeah. Awesome. But so listen, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about kind of your passion and your interest in career development, because something we talked about before is kind of our eagerness to be like, okay, how can we improve the existing career development services, or what can individuals do? So I think maybe what will be most useful for the audience is, because a lot of people that listen to this are kind of either fresh graduates or just starting off in their careers. So what have you seen as the biggest maybe mistake that graduates make, because you've been in this for a while, and what would you say like as some of the, I don't know, things to watch out for if you're a fresh graduate?
Well, I think the one thing that I would say, and I think this is more so like just because I work specifically with creative students, is do not wait for an experience to give you experience. And what I mean by that is a lot of them say, oh, I didn't get this chance to practice graphics or make a film or whatever. And so they wait till their senior year. And then, they're like, it's kind of that chicken before the egg. And I tell them, you do not need to have a structure or system like an organization back you to create. So for instance, if you're a writer, you don't need a publishing company to write. If you're a filmmaker, you don't need a studio to create a film. If you're a graphic designer, you don't need a graphic design firm to make graphics. You have the abilities and tools, obviously with some, I try to think about empathy and access, but you still should still have some access to the technology. Like even if you're a student that's disadvantaged and don't have money, there's resources on campus to help you get rent a camera. You can rent the camera, right? Or you can use their computer lab to use their nice Adobe Photoshop. But the resources are there to teach yourself. I always get like this too, like, oh, I'm waiting for my senior year to take this advanced course in graphic design. Why? Why don't you use LinkedIn Learning, which is free to you as a student? And so this might be applicable, depending on your university. So young people out there, please, I understand that maybe not everyone has access to LinkedIn Learning or whatever, but like you can use your phone, you can use your laptop, you can write, make a blog. And so if you are waiting for someone else to give you the access to create, then you're going to be short when it's time to present. and have experiences. So I tell people, find those experiences on your own and create on your own. And also do it in a volunteer capacity. So we talked about this earlier. You said, I do a lot. Well, I'm in the community. I'm doing things like I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And so I don't have a normal 9-to-5 leadership role or a lot of supervision. You know, I might manage a few students, right? But do I manage another adult? Well, I found management opportunities in the community by serving, like when I'm on these boards and community service things, I'm getting that tangible experience. So when they say, do you have relevant supervision experience? I'm gonna use my committee. I'm gonna use my committee experience of leading other adults in the community. That is my experience. So one thing I always challenge people, do not wait. Do not wait till your senior year. Do not wait to even start college. I talk to high school kids all the time. You have the ability and the tools to create and get the experience on your own, whether in a volunteer capacity or community capacity, concurrently while you look for internships and stuff, so that when it's time to come and say, hey, I want to be a graphic design student, and they ask you, do you have any graphics to show? You have something. You have a portfolio. Do you have any writing samples as a writer? Yes, I have my blog that I made on my own. No one told me to make this blog. I got this to present. Do you have any supervision experience? Yes, I was doing this. I organized a soup drive or community service thing with a lead of team of 13 people. I got this experience to bring to you. So make your own experiences to make yourself marketable. Do not wait to graduate or this whatever transitional phase that you're going through. Do not wait to the transition phase. Find times, reverse engineer, and say, what in my capacity or in my agency that I have control over, can I garner that experience?
I love that. And as you're speaking, you know, this approach works for just about any level of your career. Because even with career change seekers, like mid-level individuals, which is what I work with a lot. So at career change, it's the same thing. People always like, well, let me go back to school and then maybe I'll do this. Or let me wait a year to get this certification and then maybe then I'll do this. But it's like, what is stopping you? Like, you don't need this formal degree in most cases. You need experience. And how do you get that experience is, like you said, like the volunteer, just getting the experience. And I think, I don't know where we've gone wrong as society, where we're lacking the creativity and critical thinking to say, what else can I do? What haven't I tried? I feel like we've been so conditioned to be like, this is the way to go. And I have to wait till my senior year to take this class in order for me to do it. And I feel like it's just this thinking, right? Which is why actually critical thinking and creativity are one of the top skills that are needed from a soft skills perspective for like 2025 and beyond. And it's crazy to me because I'm like, how is this basic human skill is like becoming so in demand, because that means that there's a lack of it, right? That means that we're not critical thinkers and we're not creative thinkers and curious individuals. If that is one of the reports from a World Economic Forum, these are the skills that are needed. That means that like it's probably lacking at the moment. So it's and when you speak about these things, I'm like, well, technically, yeah, it probably is lacking because we're still like.
It brings me up to the point that we find security in systems. We find security in normal timelines, like go to high school, go to college, go to like these, and then like, you know, you set parameters by that, right? And I think we attach credentials and certificates to that, right? Like, you know, I can't start this now, I'm 30 years old. I can't start this now, I'm 40. And because we found comfort in setting systems and seeing how that works, right?
Right.
And so I think that kind of, not say makes us lazy, but it limits us because we have this normal trajectory timeline that we all think we need to adhere to. Yeah. But, you know, when you work with career switchers and it's never too late and all this other stuff, you understand that if you work in the present, there is really no timeline for a lot of stuff, right? Like you can start things and do things different. There's no timeline. I mean, there's some firm suggestions, right? You know, maybe like, you know, physical limitations or these things are in place because it makes sense, but it doesn't mean it's absolute, right? Like, you know, health-wise, you can't do certain things when you get older, your body, whatever. But we adhere to these timelines because that's what we are going through. We are so used to structures being implemented on us, specifically in education. We think that, you know, you go to elementary school, you go to middle school, you go to high school, you go to college, grad school, whatever, and we have these timelines that we go through. And if we get a wrench in that, it throws us all off. And I've come to realize that, yes, there is certain places where to get a level of access, you need a degree or whatever, right? That I can't deny that. But this timeline that we have adhered ourselves to is not absolute. That's all. That's my only point I'll make. It is not absolute. Like you don't, as you said, don't need a degree to start certain things, or you don't like, there's loopholes and exceptions to everything. And so I think we just get really comfortable, like I can even talk to, when I was thinking about doing a podcast, I thought that reverse engineering, that you needed to have like a degree in audio editing and know how to do audio editing first. No, I mean, you could teach, like, you reverse the timeline, adhere to your own timetable and growth timeline. But I think that adheres to that notion that we have to wait for certain things to happen, because we have set ourselves on this automatic timeline that is around us all the time. And I love stories where someone was like 50 years old and they started a new career, because it shows like they didn't care, they tried something different. Or even opposite, like when you see someone that's really, really young that you never thought would be on this timeline and they already started, right? Like it's showing that like age and all these things, these time restrictions, these systems, while they're comforting, while they're normalized, while they do majority of the time make sense, it's not absolute.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so spot on. I really hope everybody who's listening to this, whatever's been stopping them, is like they're gonna go, and however young or old they are, or however they feel, I just wish they would just take some action. Yeah, I mean, listen, we're living longer. There's so many opportunities today to create what you want. It's not always going to be easy, but it's just a matter of trying something, and you never know what might come out. So, but
so I mean, I want to be, and when I say normal timelines, I also don't want to be like one of those like toxic, positive people. Like you can do anything you want, right? There are systems and barriers in place, right? There's limited access to certain things, or there's physical abilities, and there's all kinds of different things that. But I still even view those that even if you have an awareness of it, it's not impossible. You just need to know what are the barriers, what are the challenges, work around those barriers, find allies that have different access. Maybe like you don't, like I said earlier, I told some student, hey, just go record a film. Well, no, maybe the access to a nice camera is not there, but then we got to think outside the box. Where are the resources where you can get the nice camera, or can you borrow it, or can you get a friend that has a better camera? So, there is limitations in regards to this timeline. There is barriers, but I still really, really believe that nothing is impossible if you have awareness of where you're at, where your starting point at, and then like aligning yourself and finding the information and finding the resources that match your level of access. It's agency, basically. You still have agency. You just have to like understand what systems are, not oppressing you, but are barriers or challenges, as they say.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed out the whole kind of the toxic positivity aspect. And I consider myself a realistic optimist. So, but my biggest thing is like, the kind of message I guess I try to put out there is like, don't be your own worst enemy and your own obstacle. That's like, I think that's what the audience can take away even from some of the things that you're saying, is like, just, yes, there's limitation and it's not a fair world, and it's by all means, we all have challenges, but it's just make sure that you're not the challenge, like you're not the one stopping yourself, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in between your ears. Like I think they were saying in regards to, I was reading a book by Sonia Lubinsky or something like that, and she had a pie chart, and obviously how your upbringing, hereditary, your DNA, but it's still in that pie chart. You have at least, I think she said, at least 15% agency in your own happiness. And what I mean by that, like, the tools and writing and journaling, like you still, regardless of the situation of the world around you, you still have agency of at least 15%. And I like to tap into that, like tap into like, what can I do? And then, obviously understand what's going around me. But like, that was, like you said, like I was in that situation when I didn't start my podcast, I was that person. I was the only barrier when no one told me don't do it. I was the barrier in that situation. So I love that. And in other situations, I know I've realized there's times where I've been the barrier of myself and trying, or, self-sabotage myself, or didn't set a plan, all those things. I understand the part of agency that I could be accountable to myself. And then I understand like around me, the situation around me, like I know what it is. I'm not so naive to realize that, I had to address issues around me, or just be aware of what's going on around me before I try things. But if I love what you're saying. If at least can eliminate myself as a barrier, I give myself a better chance of trying or being successful.
Yeah. Listen, I'm so glad that George Mason has somebody like you in the space where young people really need to have an influence like yourself. Let me ask you about your pin, because it's been catching my eye. So tell me, what is that pin you're wearing?
So I'm on a committee. I'm always doing extra stuff, but it's called Mason Chooses Kindness. And so we want to infuse kindness as a initiative at Mason. This is a cross-campus initiative, including students, faculty, staff, and alum. And what we really want to do is we want to say, how is kindness embedded in our community and how it can tie into all the different things. So even kindness could, being nice and kind and helping support others feeds into so many different pockets, right? Like when I'm working with students, am I exhibiting kindness and helping them, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm teaching a class, am I exhibiting kindness? If I'm an alum and I'm giving back and helping out, is that exhibiting kindness? And so you realize that kindness is not just that, foo-foo, feel good. It's actual tangible effort, realistic effort to make the world a better place and also help others. And it has a service component. It has a diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like, think about making a kind environment. A kind environment is when everyone feels like they belong, right? So you realize that kindness as a skill, as a concept, as an idealism, it should just be permeating through. And if we want to be a well-being university that George Mason wants to be, we want to be known as a university committed to well-being, then we realize that kindness needs to be embedded in that well-being.
I love that. That's so important.
Yeah, so we had like a little ceremony. We had like kindness ambassadors. What we did is we sent out awards, and we had a speech by the president, and then everyone that was a kindness ambassador got these pins. Because it's just, you're going to ask me about it, then I'll tell you about it. We got a whole website, Mason Chooses Kindness, and so it's just branding to say, like, we are really going to not just visibly, with our promotion and all that, but we're also going to do it with our actions. We're going to really embed kindness throughout the university.
Yeah, I love that. So listen, final question for you. If you had a magic wand to transform, whether it's career services, whether it's education, whether it's how people feel about podcasting, whatever, choose a topic. If you had a magic wand, what would you like to see happen?
I think I'm gonna go with this overall access. I wish that, everyone had, I think access and as well as inside, like everyone could access that part in themselves that say, like, I can do things. Like I said, eliminate that barrier and give yourself access to try. So that'd be the individual micro level. But I think the macro level is that I wish that everyone have access to be great. And what I mean by that, like, it kind of infuses with diversity, equity, inclusion, but it just permeates everything. Like, everyone has the ability, if they wanted to go to school. Everyone has the ability, if they wanted these tools, like a camera, that they could get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like I wish everyone had access to things that would, eliminate barriers so they can at least try. I can't guarantee success. I can't guarantee, but just the effect that if you have the ability and have the equal level of access, that'd be great. So if I had a magic wand and someone said, Philip, I want to try this, and I could do the wand and give them at least access to start, that'd be dope. You know what I'm saying? So that'd be my word and my wish, is access, equitable access for everyone that wants to try something.
Yeah. I think that's, sometimes it's all you need is just access. And I think some of us take it for granted how much access and privilege we have to certain opportunities and things. So I love that. It's a beautiful way to finish this conversation. Listen, I truly appreciate the things that you're doing and the person that you are within the education space. I think that your energy and your passion are contagious. And I know that students that are working with you are probably picking that up, and your colleagues. And I think we need more people like yourself who are just, curious and continuous learning, and also sharing everything that you're learning. So kudos to you, really.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm, as I said earlier on my podcast, I'm just so happy that you were patient with me, during the pandemic. And, it's been a blessing to get to know you and collaborate with you. And I just appreciate, like, you didn't give up. We went back and forth, and we actually got something down on the books. But, I think that, collaborating, sharing ideas, helping each other, that's something I love. It gives me passion. It makes me happy. So I appreciate you. And I really appreciate this opportunity to be on your show as you were on mine. So I think this is great, and continue to do what you're doing, share knowledge, and really help people.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll speak soon.